Right, my name is Rick Ellis. I'm from allyourscreens.com. So let me start with you, James. Doing a documentary, this seems like a subject matter which is a godsend. I mean, there are just endless levels of crazy in it, and I suspect it was a lot of fun to do.
It was both fun and educational, and it is one of those things where when we went into it, you go in understanding like Eric Conn is this wild character. I mean, it's called the Big Conn for a reason. Like, Eric is a focal point of this whole story, but at the same time, there are very serious undertones to this whole thing. I mean, the idea of going from comedic to tragic was something that was very intriguing to us with McMillions, and then taking it a step further with the Big Conn, and really to lure people in with this wild, crazy lawyer of Eric, and then really let you understand of how stealing $500 million from the government really helped decimate an entire community in Eastern Kentucky.
Well, Brian, I was looking at your resume, and you've done a lot of reality TV, and this strikes me as maybe helpful for this kind of story, because you're used to having to edit in a way to track a bunch of different storylines going on at the same time. And there is a lot of complexity to this story.
There's certainly a lot of complexity to the story. And like any filmmaker, when you start going down the rabbit hole of a story as big as this, you realize you need a team. And so we have an incredible team of people that have worked with us to not only, help find the people that we need to bring this to life, but also to crack the story. It's not an easy story to tell. And one of the reasons why we spent so long with it was because we wanted to make sure that people understood how funny the story could be, but also, as James said, like how tragic. And you've got, these whistleblowers who are kind of also like, along with, the Eric Conn character that's at the centerpiece, like our whistleblowers are also at the centerpiece of this story too. That's the yin and the yang of, two people trying to right a wrong. And we continue to find new surprises along the way, like Eric Conn going on the run, and the crazy stories of, trying to cross a border with, a dog named Curly, like that he named, as he's walking across the border to help get it going. So we always found ourselves thinking, okay, it could be told this way or that way. And you do this as a filmmaker, just, you have to experiment, you have to play, you have to figure out like what is the right tone to tell a story like this that has the humor and the tragedy, and how do you want to take someone on that ride?
James, one of the things that was interesting to me about this is, number one, it's really a story that couldn't have happened if he was located in New York or Atlanta or Denver. There's something very specific about the area, and that he got to be a big shot, and that helped sort of make all this possible. On the other side of that, you guys did a good job of not making it seem like, oh, these are just a bunch of hillbillies screwing the Social Security Administration. So
that actually is that's a great thank you for that observation, because it was a big deal to us. It was, you're right. Because this was such a small area, because he could basically buy out every billboard and commercial and every print ad in the area, he could make himself a celebrity, which New York and Atlanta and Chicago and LA have enough of those. Because it was a small community, you really could have that happen. But on top of that, to us, it was really important to not have any sort of glimmering of making fun of the area or the people in that area. It took a long time for us to gain the trust of the people from Pikeville, from the people in Prestonsburg, just Eastern Kentucky in general, because traditionally in entertainment, they're shown as hillbillies that live in the mountains and toothless, and that was a thing that they were very concerned about. And we wanted to make sure that everyone got to talk for themselves, that people understand that Eastern Kentucky is a beautiful area. The people there are fantastic. They're really have come on hard times because the entire coal industry has really disappeared, and they went from this area having the most millionaires per capita in a county in the 80s to having one of the poorest counties currently. And so we wanted to really ensure that people understand how real this is and how good these people are and how they were wronged by this person.
Well, Brian, you mentioned the idea of, he's crossing the border with the dog, and how crazy it is. And he's a fascinating guy in that on one hand, he talks a lot about how, look, the Social Security situation is set up in a way that isn't fair, and I'm just trying to help these people. On the other hand, he's been married 10 times and he's doing these billboards. He doesn't really seem to make that mental connection between the two.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's necessarily making the mental connection between the two, but in a lot of ways, it's like with Eric, it seemed like he was searching for acceptance, right? He was really searching for something, and we all have this in ourselves, right? We all we grow up trying to figure out how do we make an impact, how could we actually be happy in life. And Eric was, like many people, having struggles. He wanted, we felt like in some ways there was a genuine side of actually maybe wanting to help some people. But I think you could easily see that he was a narcissist who really just wanted to fill his pockets with money. And that's the great complexity about Eric. And you don't know how you should feel about him throughout the course of this documentary series. And when you look at the decisions that he made and how it affected all these people, he wasn't alone, right? There were a lot of people that were also connected to Eric that contributed to allowing this to happen.
Well, and James, I think it seems like that's one of the points that you guys wanted to make in this, is that, early on there's some discussion about, well, this is basically a victimless crime. Government's got a lot of money, we're just helping these people out. But the impact, the blowback from all this was just brutal for this area. It impacted all sorts of people, lots of people who didn't have anything to do with the original crime.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. With the Big Conn, the whole concept of people, individual, really Social Security, and especially Social Security benefits for disability, are really the last sort of safety net for a lot of people who need these benefits. And because of the coal industry, because of these really industrial type jobs, there are a lot more people per capita in this area that need these type of benefits than anywhere else in the nation. And so when you all of a sudden take these benefits and give them to everybody, you're really helping them out, because normally it was taking people a year and a half, 2 years to get these benefits. Eric was getting people benefits in a month. And when you start flooding the area with more money, with people, it really helps the area in general. But then when the Social Security Administration just pulls everything back once everyone finds out what Eric is doing, then you're taking millions of dollars out of an already pretty strained economy. And so if it doesn't affect you directly, it's affecting you indirectly. And there are a lot of people that are still fighting to get their benefits back. And we really hope that the Big Conn really shines a light on this whole thing so people can help get their benefits back.
Well, and Brian, one of the things that also comes out in is that there were a lot of people higher up the chain who were just fine ignoring it. They at least suspected something was going on, but either it was good for the careers, or they said, well, why open this can of worms? We'll just let it go. It's just money. And at some point they had to face that reckoning. And some of them seemed quite surprised that they had to. It was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, kind of at the root of this story is the consequence of ignoring a problem. When you really break down how these two whistleblowers were raising a flag and saying, hey, this is an issue, this shouldn't happen. There was really one person at the very beginning that could have put a stop to this. And instead, a lot of people ignored it because it, not necessarily criminal in some cases, but they benefited from what was happening. And when you ignore a problem for too long, it becomes a bigger problem. And it becomes a bigger problem. And when you realize the results of ignoring a problem for as long as it did, and it cascading into this incredible fraud and all these people decimating an entire community, it's a tragedy. It's so unfortunate that it could have been stopped. In a lot of cases, that's why there's an inspirational side of this too, of people need to step up if they see something that excuse me, if they see something that shouldn't exist, right, or shouldn't be a certain way. If you see it wrong, what can you do to right it?
Well, James, there's a lot. It's 4 hours. There's a lot in the documentary. Were there some things that you just couldn't fit in for whatever reason that you just thought, oh man, this is a great story though, because there's always those weird little facts where this is funny, but I just don't know where it would go in the story.
Well, I'm really glad you asked that, because there were several things like that, especially when you talk about Eric's manuscript that he wrote about his own life. Really fascinating to see the internal workings. But, in 4 hours of the Big Conn is 4 hours long, as one chunk, and we definitely couldn't fit all of the fantastic things into it. So we're also doing a companion podcast. It's 6 episodes. It's the Big Conn, the official podcast. It's actually released on May 6th, the same day that the entire doc series is released. And then one episode will come out every Friday for the next 5 Fridays after the first one. But we're really fortunate that, working with Apple TV Plus was great on this project. They really let us do that dive into the 4 episodes on the doc series. And then when we said, look, there's so much more to this, it's so expansive. And they were more than happy to let us do the Big Conn podcast on Apple Podcasts.
Well, I look forward to listening to it now, having watched the 4 hours. I'm curious to see what didn't get in there. So, Brian, I'll ask you sort of the last question here. When you're in the middle of this, like you said, it took a long time to get together. It was a lot of work. It's really hard to get perspective while you're working on it. When you got a chance to see the entire thing all put together, what was your reaction to it? Was there anything that was surprising, or you sort of thought, oh, this feels a different way seeing it laid out in a linear fashion?
There's never a switch, right? Because you're always in it to the very last minute. We had a chance to premiere at South by Southwest, and we had a chance to see it in a theater with people for the very first time. And that was such an extraordinary experience because, through this pandemic, everybody siloed off. You don't really have those opportunities. And it was amazing to see how people were reacting in the theater, and people were laughing at things that, we actually didn't even think were funny. And
that's probably my parents.
And so, yeah, it's really satisfying. I think just getting to this point, I don't know if we necessarily see the story in a different way, but it's such a satisfying place to be because of the amount of work that not only us, but our entire team puts into this, and all the extended people at Apple TV Plus to make this come to life.
Well, congratulations on this. I have to say, from a reviewing standpoint, sometimes you see something, it's 4 hours, and you think, oh man, how there's going to be a lot of filler in here. And this was one of those things where I could watch it and think, I can see another 4 hours, no problem. There was a lot of crazy here. So you really did a great job with it. I appreciate you taking the time to talk.
Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.